Hello everyone, this is John Blackstone with Only Kid with a Camera. A couple of weeks ago, I flew to Los Angeles for my very first interview with a gentleman who's had a massive impact on my life as a musician and an artist. His name is Caleb Quaye. He played an integral role in the very beginning of Elton John's career, and then he picked up with Elton again when Elton was literally on top of the world. There was no one bigger. And the stories that Caleb tells are just amazing. Later on in the interview, Caleb and I actually listened to tracks from Rock of the Westies and Blue Moves, and it's really a cool experience. So put on your headphones, strap in, and check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it. This is Caleb Quaye.
Today is a momentous day for me. I'm interviewing a guy that has more to do with my life than he could. Well, he probably hears this all the time, but this is Mr. Caleb. It's Caleb Quaye. Is
correct?
That okay? Just want to make sure I got it right because people have pronounced it 20,000 different ways over the years.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here, Caleb. I'm really happy to have you.
Thank you.
When I was a kid in the 1970s, 12 years old, I was an Elton John fanatic. I had posters of you guys on my wall.
Yeah.
I had begged my parents to let me see the Elton tour previous. I wasn't quite old enough. I was 11. But finally, when you guys came on the Rock of the Westies tour, they let me go. So that was my very first concert. And I wasn't just an Elton fan. I was like one of those kids that read all the liner notes.
Oh, yeah.
Needless to say, it was very transformative, kind of set the course of my life in a lot of ways.
I apologize for that.
and I appreciate that. I totally get that.
I hope that was a good thing.
It was. There were some hairy moments. Yeah. One of the reasons that I've wanted to interview you is because of watching your documentary. I was so blown away by your life story. It's so interesting, so fascinating. I wanted to just ask you a couple of questions about things in the movie because I really want to encourage people to see the movie. It's just such an amazing story. One thing I really had no idea about before watching it was your father. I didn't know that he had an entire career, a music career.
Yeah.
She's got a pair of eyes, and they're brighter than the summer skies. When I saw them, how I realized I'm in love with sweet Lorraine.
One of the stories that really jumped out at me was your dad would ask you, what do you want for Christmas?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. At that time, he was wrestling with his own damage.
Yeah.
And also in the movie, my mom, she said that he was very much all about himself. So he was a very prideful person. Like back in those days, his guitar and his instruments were very precious to him, to the point he didn't want anybody messing with his thing, so I would sneak into the closet and strum the strings on his guitar, know, and he'd hear it and he'd go, well, get your hands off my guitar, and,
yes,
blow his stack. The story you're talking about, I was just coming up to age 10. And by that time, music had started to become a big thing, as well as being a kid, having fun at school with my friends at school and everything, but music was starting to come on strong, and I used to watch my dad practice his guitar and piano. He was a multi-instrumentalist. He was a drummer, pianist, guitarist, singer. But he played drums for Fats Waller when he was 16 years old. Yeah. He was an accomplished musician, And so I used to enjoy just sitting watching him play the guitar.
I bet.
And just listening to the sound of the instrument, and it would just get to me. It's like, man, I want to do that. I'd like to do that. So when it gets to right before my 10th birthday is when he would ask me, son, what do you want for your birthday? And I said, oh, Dad, I'd love a guitar. Okay, great. So when my birthday came around, he'd get something else, and there was no guitar.
Yeah.
I was like disappointed, upset. So another year goes by, my 11th birthday, same thing. Son, what do you want for your birthday? And I would say, oh, Dad, I'd love a guitar. So, of course, another year's gone by. I'm listening to more and more guitar. Yes. I'm listening. This thing is getting crazy. So, okay, we'll get your guitar. The birthday comes around, no guitar, Finally, my 12th birthday, same question. Son, what would you like for your birthday? I said, Dad, I would really love a guitar, And finally, on my 12th birthday, he takes me downtown to this pawn shop and gets me this guitar. It was the cheapest instrument. I mean, it was nothing fancy at all. Just old acoustic guitar and
plywood and wires.
Oh yeah, and the strings were like half an inch off the fretboard. It was, but I was thrilled. I finally got a guitar. You know, and I was thinking, this is great. Finally, I'm going to learn to play guitar. My dad's going to give me a lesson. So we come back home, and he takes me into the what we call the living room where the piano was. And he sits down at the piano, takes the guitar. He says, "This is how you tune it up." He showed me the notes on the piano. E, A, D, G, B, E, this is how you tune it up. And I'm thinking, great, I'm going to get my first guitar lesson. And then he just hands the guitar back to me. He says, here you go. You're on your own now.
Wow.
And shortly after that, within a couple of months, he left us. He split when I was 12 years old.
You said in the film that made you really angry.
I was really, yeah. And there'd been a lot of hell going on in the house. I mean, he'd become, quite the alcoholic and everything.
Yeah.
And so it was a bad scene at home, and so then that was it. He left, he left us, So my mom's working 3 jobs to feed the kids. And I mean, it was a rough time.
How long was it before you heard anything from him again after that?
It would have been about 8 years. I was 12 then, so the next time was 20 when I turned 20 years old. By that time, I'm a well-known studio musician. I'm doing great. I got my own career going, and he showed up back in town.
Was he aware of your career?
I think he'd heard some things, yeah. So we met in a pub and everything, and I told him, I said, I'm not calling you Dad. You've not earned it. When I was a kid, of course, I was smaller. My dad was bigger. So he was like the monster. When he'd lose his temper, too much drink, crazy. 8 years later, I'm now bigger, and I go to meet him at this pub, and I see him standing outside the pub, and I'm thinking, I'm going to knock this guy's lights out. I'm going to do damage to this man, And the closer I get to him, the smaller he gets. I'm thinking all this anger just dissipated, I'm thinking, I can't hit this guy, little guy. What in the world? So that's when we had this conversation in the pub. Now I'd become an adult. I wasn't the little kid anymore. I had my own guitar and my own career.
Dad, I bought my own guitar.
I'm playing on hit records and stuff, so it was crazy. Shortly before my dad left, I was about maybe 10, 11 years old. I'm getting ready to go to school, the mail came, or the postman, as we say in England. And they used to drop the letters through the door, letterbox in the door,
right.
So my mom goes up, she picks up the mail, and she comes back and she's reading this letter. It was from Alcoholics Anonymous.
Really?
Yeah. She said, look at this. This is your father. I said, okay, what's this? I read the letter. It says, Dear Mr. Quaye, we've heard about your exploits and we think it's time that you come and see us. Alcoholics Anonymous had found out our address and they're sending it to my dad, calling him in because he was crazy. Yeah.
That doesn't happen here. What was that something that was unique to Alcoholics Anonymous?
I have no idea. All I know was it was like a nightmare in our house. So I went to school just shell-shocked. My mom, she's like, the blood's drained out of her face, Yeah, it was crazy.
We've heard about your exploits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So it was wild times.
Let's talk a little bit about music. I wanted to ask you, when Elton was forming Bluesology, what were you doing musically? Didn't he kind of invite you into the band, but you were doing something else?
Yeah. So at the time when he formed Bluesology, which would have been in 65, 66, I was working for Dick James Music. So I was working at Dick James and I was running the studio there. He was the Beatles music publisher.
Yeah.
And he'd started his own production company and was going to, become a record label.
Was it Stephen that was running that?
Stephen was originally running the studio and everything, but he wasn't going to stay there because he was being groomed to take over the whole company after his father. I was interested in every aspect of making music, the whole process.
Yes.
The creative side, writing, playing, performing it, arranging it, but also on the other side of recording it, producing it, putting the sound together.
You were fired up by that?
Totally obsessed.
Yeah, yeah.
So this was a golden opportunity. So they saw that I had talent. So Stephen invited me, you know, and he had me playing on sessions, and I'm asking questions left and right and watching. I mean, I'm just, you know,
soaking up stuff.
Totally, yeah, you know. And so eventually they let me run the studio. So I began running the studio in late 65 into 66. So during that time, Elton had formed Bluesology, and they were out, you know, touring and stuff. So then it would be early 67, right after I'd gotten Elton and Bernie signed to Dick James Music, and he was still working with Bluesology. They were backing a singer called Long John Baldry.
Yes.
And Long John Baldry suddenly had a hit single, #1 single.
The one that you laugh about.
Oh, my God, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Let the Heartaches Begin.
Yes.
So let the heartaches begin. I can't help it, I can't win. I've lost that girl for sure, and tears won't help anymore. Yes, let the heartaches begin.
Just ridiculous, yeah. And it was one of these records that was nothing like what the material that they were doing. It was just this real corny, schmaltzy pop ballad, you know.
Yes.
And it just took off and became a #1 hit, you know. So he said to me, and we had already started working on his project, him and Bernie's project, because I was his first producer.
Weren't you doing all the song demos and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. This situation comes up. He says, John's got this hit record, and our guitar player, a guy called Neil Hubbard, he's quit the band. We need a guitar player. Why don't you come play with Bluesology? And that way we can still work on our stuff, you know, while we're on the road. I talked to Dick about it. He was fine. So I was doing double duty. I was going out on gigs with Bluesology, and, you know, and so we're still working on stuff on the road, and then come back a few days off and get back in the studio and record these demos and stuff, you know.
So you were working all the time.
Oh, man. So busy. I look back and I go, how in the world did I redo some of this stuff? You know, it was a busy time, but we were young. We were teenagers, obsessed, you know. We spent all our money on music, buying records, listening to records and stuff, you know, and it was an amazing time.
One of the things that was really interesting to me is in the film, you say that Elton, when he was talking to his mom, I guess he was introducing you to her. And he said, Mom, this is Caleb, and we're friends because we like the same kind of music.
Exactly.
That really jumped out at me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We used to eat, sleep, and breathe music.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was. It was amazing. And I often tell, you know, music students and stuff, there's a 5-year period, 1965 to 1970. Those 5 years were probably the most explosive 5-year period in music history.
Yes.
Because everything was changing, and there was so much both creativity and invention was going on. You know, so like when we started, state-of-the-art recording was 4-track. That was it.
Yes.
That was it, you know.
Yes.
People were doing demos on 2 tracks and this, that, you know, the odd 3-track studio, you know. But if someone came to us and said, oh, you know what, we just signed with EMI, or we're going to go record at Abbey Road, you know, EMI, and we're going to record 4-track. Oh man, you'd hit the trifecta.
That's so incredible.
That was it, 4-track.
Yes, that's the big explosion.
That was it, you know. And in those 5 years, man, it went from 4-track to 16-track.
So by 70, it was at 16.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Amazing. Yeah. And I used to go to demonstrations, like, because I knew the heads of studios. So a good friend of mine was Keith Grant, for instance, who had Olympic Studios.
Yes.
That was his studio. And he got hold of the first, one of the first Ampex machines from the States, you know. He would say, oh, we're doing a demonstration. You got to come and hear the new 8-track. And so he'd invite all the producers, you know.
Yeah.
And there with George Martin and all these guys, you know. And then he'd do, see, look what we can do with the drums. You can have the kick on 1 track.
Wow.
You can spread the top, and, you know, they'd play a tom fill and it would pan, and we're all sitting there going, oh, dun, 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 dun.
That's amazing.
My, what?
I love it.
We've all gone to heaven. You
Yes. Totally.
And you can separate the vocals and everything, you know. I mean, it was It's kind of hard for now, I guess, for people in the digital world to get their heads around that.
Yeah.
You know, because there were no effects. You had to come up with it, you know.
Absolutely. And you had to make production decisions in the moment.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Tape editing with a razor blade. We were trained to do that. That was hilarious.
What's that?
Oh, it's a street cleaner.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what's happening?
We're live on location, folks.
Empty Sky, was it Steve Brown?
It was Steve Brown, yeah. I wasn't producing then. I'd actually left Dick James at that point in terms of running the studio. Steve Brown took over production thing because I'd started my own band, Hookfoot.
Yeah, Hookfoot, which I want to ask you about.
Which was also signed to Dick James, you know.
Oh, Dick, I didn't know that. Hookfoot was on Dick James?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I noticed that there are recordings of Elton, I think BBC recordings, where you guys are his backing band.
Right. We were his original backing group. Yeah, because we were stable mates.
How is it that you didn't end up being his band? Was it because you had Hookfoot going and you wanted to keep that as a separate thing?
Yeah, and there were some ideological music differences.
Yeah.
Like myself and Hookfoot's drummer, which was Roger Pope, we were like music soulmates. And both of our fathers had been jazz musicians. So we were firmly rooted in jazz and blues. You know, when I first met Roger, he was playing in a great band called the Soul Agents. And I met him on a TV show in 1965. It's a show called Ready, Steady, Go, which is a popular music show over there. And him and his band were backing Buddy Guy, you know, and I went, oh, who's this? This is great. And his drumming really impressed me. He was one of the few guys in England at that time that could do the Art Blakey shuffle. Right? He knows what I'm talking about. Art Blakey was a good friend of my father's.
Oh, is that right?
I grew up on this music.
Yeah.
Moaning. So he had that shuffle swing going, you know, and it wasn't messy. It was pocket, you know, what we call pocket. And Roger had that. So that's what attracted me to I said, oh, man, I got to talk to this guy, you know.
Yeah.
So, and it was funny. I went up to him. I said, hey, I see you know about the Art Blakey shuffle. Yeah, man. We hit it off right there.
Yes. You were soul brothers.
Oh, absolutely.
Music.
Yeah. So when it came to Hookfoot, you know, I mean, Roger and myself, we were the core of that, and we weren't interested in being pop stars.
Did you feel that Elton's early stuff, because to me it doesn't, like Empty Sky and even the first album, it doesn't feel like pop music to me, but it was poppy to you guys.
To a point, yeah. I mean, he had changed along the way, but he always wanted to be a star.
Yeah.
He would flat out tell us that.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And we'd go, yeah, okay, great. You know, I just wanted to be a great musician.
Yes. I get that. Yes, totally.
You know,
yes.
So to me, it was like, you know, I just wanted to play everything, you know. You know, there's a saying, what's his name? The great artist, Picasso. He said, an artist is the sum total of his influences. Me and Roger were very aware of what our influences were, and we wanted to incorporate that in what we were doing.
I love that stuff. To me, it's so musical.
That's the deal. That was the deal.
Yeah. And you just hear that in those recordings. It's like, wow, these guys are like on fire.
Yeah, that was the deal.
Was that a disappointment that didn't take off in a bigger way for you guys at all? Or was it just kind of like, oh, well?
A bit of both, really. I mean, we knew we were doing something different. We formed in 68. So when 1970 came around, the whole glam rock, we called it glitter rock over there, you know, T-Rex and all that, and people started dressing up. So the thing changed. It was no longer about the music. It was more about the image and the makeup and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, we just weren't into it.
Yeah,
we were not into that at all, you know, and it was getting less musical, more image.
Yes.
That
kind of reminds me of now.
Yeah.
That started a long time ago. Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons I moved to the US.
Is that right?
Yeah. I came over here in 74. And I had an opportunity to come over here, and I wanted to get as close to what, in my mind, was the music that had influenced me from when I was a kid. And it was all American music, you know. So I thought, well, let's go to it.
Did you come here to LA?
First stop was Chicago.
Oh, really? Oh, because of Chicago blues.
Yeah. And so got to hang out there, meet some folks out there and play out there and soak some of that up out there, you know, which is great.
come the time for Elton's first album, was that recorded at Trident?
Yeah, with your song? And
yes.
That was Trident, yeah.
Can you just tell me a little bit, because I've always imagined this, how was the studio laid out? Were all of you guys essentially in the same room together, orchestra, drums, bass?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. Some pieces the orchestra was dubbed on.
I see.
Because now we're 16 track,
Yeah.
So that was like, we can do some of that there. And there.
Totally.
But the room was great. It was styled after Abbey Road number 2. They had the control room was upstairs.
Yes.
But you could get a good-sized orchestra in the Trident studio as well, yeah.
How big an orchestra was that? Do you remember?
I can't remember the exact size of it, but you could get, 16-piece, something like that, pretty good size string section of stuff, The control room was upstairs. The performance room the studio was downstairs. The drums were boothed off. They had a booth there. And so there was plenty of room to, get some guitars and then strings and what have you.
Well, the engineers, something I'm so impressed with when I listen to those recordings, especially when you hear what music sounds like now. Mm-hmm. You listen to the recordings and just the immediacy of the sounds of the guitars, the strings, even the sound of the piano. It's just so gorgeous.
Well, the engineers back then, and at Trident particularly, there was a great engineer, Robin Cable.
I've heard his name. Yeah.
He was something else. He was great. Engineers back in those days, in my opinion, the secret was knowing the room. They knew the room.
Yeah.
They knew what instrument sounded best in what part of the room. So it was all to do with context, whatever the song demanded, whatever kind of sound, and whatever kind of concept the producer had, for what he saw as the finished thing.
Yes.
They knew how to accommodate that according to the room. They knew the room.
Yes.
I always love the story. It's a famous story of Atlantic Studios in New York. Bernard Purdy was the house drummer.
Yeah.
They had his drums nailed to the floor. The engineer said, this is where the drum sound is.
That's incredible.
And anybody came in there that wanted to use those drums, they could, under threat of death, they could not move those drums.
I get that.
This is where the bass sounds right.
Yeah.
Yep. This is where the guitar sounds right.
Yes.
And they knew the room, and it worked,
It seems like that's kind of a lost art now.
Well, with digitally, you print, you sample, it's not about the room. It's
really
about what button you're pushing.
It's really not about music, really, to me.
It's a whole other thing,
When you and Roger were playing those sessions for Elton, maybe it wasn't exactly what you guys wanted to do, but was that a buzz for you to be doing those tracks? Playing?
Oh, it was. We enjoyed doing it. We enjoyed bringing to the table what was us.
Yes.
And Elton enjoyed it too. It was great music chemistry. The whole star thing, that's just out there. When we're in the studio, cutting the music, working on a tune, the whole creative thing going down there, that was a joy. That was a great joy. And those songs were done quick.
Were they?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
How long did you guys work on the first and Tumbleweed?
Well, on Tumbleweed, I'll tell you the true story, Ballad of a Well-Known Gun. We did 3 takes on that, and we chose the first one because it had to feel.
And it was all charted, is that right?
Very sparsely. We actually knew the songs because we'd played them with Elton on gigs.
I see.
Because he used to come to me and say, hey, I've got a bunch of songs, can I come and sit in on,
He would work out his songs with you guys?
Oh, yeah. So like what we would call pre-production was already taken care of at gigs on the road.
Yeah.
So when we came into the studio, we knew the songs.
Yes.
And so that particular song is a classic case. So we came in, Roger had been working part-time on a building site. Laying bricks.
Construction?
Yeah.
Really?
Construction.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we came in, got booked for the session. Great, you got a session. Okay, let me take a shower,
Yes. That's why I don't stink up the studio.
I'll see you there, Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So he loads his drums in, we set up, and so we start playing the song, and Gus says, okay, let's do a take, and come see what you think of it, make sure the balance is right and everything. So we put down a take, okay, great, So we do 2 more takes. We said, okay, let's hear what we got. We chose the first one.
So cool.
And it's so funny because, the intro on Battle of the Well-Known Gun?
Yeah,
so
it's incredible.
when we went to do the first take, we're walking down the stairs from the control room, and Gus is shouting out to me, oh, Caleb, by the way, we need a guitar intro for this. I said, okay, I'm walking down the stairs. Okay, yeah, no problem. Walk down the stairs, put the guitar on, counts the song off, and I come up with that intro.
That's incredible.
And that is the take. That's the one.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That just was top of your head. Just came right out.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And that's the tune that influenced Ed King to write Sweet Home Alabama.
Yes. Isn't that amazing?
So
that's another great part of the movie.
Oh,
is that,
yeah.
Yes. That's really stunning to me, Caleb. I have to tell you. I'm a guitar player. I don't know if I told you that. That's just one of those guitar parts where you're
just pulled it out.
Whoa.
It's a gift,
Incredible.
That's the fruit of the musical chemistry that we had back then.
Yes. You basically knew each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was always fun. We couldn't wait to get in the studio. It was always fun to cut those tracks, to make that music.
I wanted to ask you about Where To Now St. Peter.
Yeah.
There is a funky wah-wah guitar part.
I took myself a blue canoe.
Sure. That is so cool. It's not just typical wah. There's like a really strange texture to that.
Well, it's a wah-wah through a Leslie cabinet.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
Oh, man, you're answering a million questions for me right now. It's such a cool sound.
Thank you.
It's just amazing. As a guitar player, well-known gun,
yeah,
St. Peter, those are the kind of things as a guitar player. You're like, what did he do? When you were done with Hookfoot, you moved to America. Is that kind of how it went?
Mm-hmm.
And then when did you get the call from Elton?
I'm going to say about maybe November or December of 1974.
Was that a welcome call? Were you excited about it?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. It got me out of Chicago, especially in the winter.
Yeah, yes,
Woo!
totally.
That was hallelujah time, let me tell you. One winter in Chicago, that was like, oh, no.
Both you and Roger, I'm assuming you found out at the same time.
Roger tipped me off. He tipped me off about it. They had come to Chicago when I was there, and Roger at that time was playing with Kiki D's band. They were opening up, for Elton's gig, So I saw them, and after the show, I went up on stage and chatted with Roger while he was packing his drums away. And so he told me, he says, keep this under your hat. He says, Elton's forming a new band. He says, I'm going to be in it. He says, I've put your name in there. Expect a phone call. I said, okay. So sure enough.
You got the call.
I got the call, yeah.
Was that a surprise to you? Because Elton obviously had a very good thing going for himself.
Sure, it was a surprise. Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it was. For me, it was a welcome surprise.
Yeah, totally. It must have been awesome. It seems like no one really quite understands. Was Elton just wanting something different? Do you think he was just kind of wanting to go in a different direction? Or why did he do it, do you think?
That was my understanding. Yeah. That was my understanding. It was primarily for musical reasons.
Yeah.
He wanted me and Roger in there to give it more of that groove kind of a feel that Hookfoot did for him,
Yes.
So he was digging back into some roots there, He also wanted to be freed up a little bit from just constantly sitting at the piano. So he could get out front and work the crowd, because things were getting very big for him by that time,
Yes.
It was understandable.
Yeah.
We were more of a jamming band. Roger and I could jam. I mean, we could just take a thing and stretch it out.
Go for 14 minutes.
Absolutely, yeah. He enjoyed that. It was fun for him, And it was fun for him to be able to stretch out a little bit.
Sure.
Because he's a great piano player.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys would get on a song like Hercules or something like that. And I think I've watched one that went on for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, from the Earl's Court.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Stuff.
I mean, you guys are just rocking.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was a tight band. It was good.
I think that's something that a lot of modern musicians don't understand. They don't really know what it means to jam. No. And they don't know how much you learn through jamming. Right. And it's kind of a lost art.
It's all a production now, so they're just all playing their parts. And that's it. And they don't really know where to go from there.
I want to ask you kind of a strange question, but there was a certain point.
A strange question.
Music definitely is not even remotely what it used to be. It's a completely different thing. Mm-hmm. And one time an interviewer asked George Martin if the Beatles used a click track.
Oh, yeah.
And he went, why would we use a click track? We had Ringo. That was his response. Yeah. And it seems to me like as soon as the click track became the standard in recording studios, it's been all downhill from there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it came in tandem with the advancement of technology.
Yeah.
And in that advancement of technology, there was this idea of, we can make it perfect now.
Yeah.
Meaning linear perfect.
Yes.
Everything can line up, be perfect. Which I get that, but it's anti-musical.
It is.
Because music reflects humanity.
Yep.
So for instance, like we're having a conversation and it's going like a conversation has ebb and flow to it. You know?
Yes.
And that's how it is with music. I mean, real music is going to have ebb and flow.
Absolutely.
It's not going to be restricted and put in this linear kind of symmetrical box.
Yes.
Because once you do that, then feeling is gone.
Totally. You're a slave to the click.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not life.
I agree.
And the jazz musicians understood that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you go back, try giving a click track to Elton John.
Yes, totally. It would be an anathema to that.
So it's all about, we're articulating, the dynamics of life and humanity in music.
Absolutely.
Regardless of the style or genre
yes.
of the music. I used to give guitar lessons and stuff and do some teaching, and students would always say to me, why is it that the music that you guys made back in the 70s still sounds better, still sounds so great?
Yeah.
It feels like, and they'd say things like this, and I'd sit there and listen. I go, well, maybe it's because we were all in the same room playing together, listening to each other.
Yes. Responding to each other.
Back to the Tumbleweed Connection story, we did 3 takes. Now, we knew the song, but there's always this thing of like, okay, we'll do another take and we'll try and make it better.
Yes.
So we'll throw extra stuff in, whatever.
Yes.
And we go up and listen to it back and we go, that first take, that's the one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why? Because it felt right.
Yes.
I mean, there were no glaring mistakes in there or anything like that, but there was this, this interplay that was going on. When you listen to the intro of that, you got the guitar intro, then you got Elton coming in on the piano with the drum fill, kind of all this overlapping interplay.
Yes.
You can't write that out.
You're right. You could never chart that.
No, you can't chart that out.
Yes.
And it feels so right.
Man, you're preaching. You're preaching, man.
So that's the stuff we live for as musicians.
Yes, totally. I started losing interest in mainstream, pop music, basically by the 80s onward.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like producers and engineers now, and the artists they work with, they're not actually capturing a performance. They're fabricating the illusion of a performance.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. It's so anti-music.
Yeah.
I keep hoping and praying that there's a kind of a pendulum swing where like people go, we're done with the tech side and let's get back to, and there are some people that do it.
Yeah, I think it's happening. Not so much in the mainstream pop thing, but there's some great jazz musicians out there, where they're using the best of both worlds. A great example I can think of is Snarky Puppy. I mean, they've studied their stuff, and they're making good, I think, appropriate use of technology. And you can watch them live videos of live performances up there. They're on it. It's good.
Am I correct that a click track was never used in any of those recordings?
Absolutely, never.
Yeah, I knew it.
Yeah.
All right, let's play some tracks.
Okay, yeah. What do you want to...
I'm going to start with Dan Dare, just a little bit of Dan Dare, because it's such a funky track. Are You on the Right?
Yes.
If you'd been here now, holy cow, my stars might have been red on the planet Mars. 'Cause I don't have foresight to see if
So
we'll
cool.
still be together in the 21st,
What is that?
Oh, that's Davey playing. He's playing guitar, but he's using the voice box thing.
Okay, gotcha.
He's our flying ace, pilot of the future, in an endless space. Holy cow, my eyes never saw wrong, 'cause that was quite that size.
Yeah, that's the voice box.
Yes.
So Davey's doing the voice box and stuff, and I'm just playing old school 60s soul music licks.
It's so
Me and
beautiful.
Roger, we're just playing old school soul music right there.
Yeah, totally. Beautiful stuff. Now, this track, Street Kids, it opens with this very cool sound. This kind of feedback thing, which I just love. It's so cool. But every time I listen to this track, I see you guys in the studio playing. It has such a vibe to it.
It was done live, actually. And in fact, my guitar solo on this, it was all done live.
Is that right?
Yeah, the whole thing was cut live. Caribou Studios.
Yeah, amazing records came out of there.
Mm-hmm. Great place.
Who was the engineer up there when those were being recorded?
One of Jim Guercio's sons, and I forget his name now.
The guys that owned the studio.
Yeah, Jim owned the studio.
Yeah. Boy, those are some great sounding records.
Yeah.
Some of the best. Rock of the Westies. And did you do Blue Moves in that same studio?
The Blue Moves was done in Toronto, a place called Eastern Sound, yeah.
Incredible sounding. Some of the best sounding records, part of which is because of the way you guys were such a band and cutting tracks live.
Yeah, and also Gus was a great producer.
Yeah.
He had great conceptual ideas.
Yes.
You know, he was a producer, but he also was an engineer as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he cut his teeth on engineer. Eric Clapton, John Mayall, Blues Breakers, the Beano album. Gus was the engineer on that. So Gus knows engineering stuff. Gus knows about the room. So he would relate real well with engineers, you know, as to what he wanted. And he could talk engineerese.
Totally, yes, totally.
Yeah.
He had a real thing about great drum sounds.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I love listening to both Nigel and Roger's drum tracks on these things. Oh, it's just so great.
Yeah.
Really dry sounding, especially with Roger. Very tight, dry.
Yeah. Sometimes Gus, it would take him 3 days to get a drum sound just because he was working the room. So we'll try him over there. Yeah. Especially if he went into a new studio. Okay, well, let's figure out the room, you know. So get the drummer in first and figure out, you know, where the drums sound, then work everything around that. That's the way we worked it. There was an old saying, which it's funny. I mean, of course, in the digital culture, it doesn't really hold much. But back in the analog days, we used to say a band is only as good as its drummer.
Yeah.
Because if the drummer, you know, drops a beat, loses the groove, it messes everybody up.
Absolutely.
You know, Gus, you know, and those guys, they understood that. So they get the drum sound sorted out first and then work everything around that, you know.
It's almost like all those tracks are built around the drum
Yeah.
sound. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which gives it so much life.
Absolutely. That's Davey's slide, that sound.
It is.
Davey's playing slide.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I come in with the riff.
You're with the da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great piano riff.
Yeah, it's a good line. Yeah.
So cool.
I just bought a Les Paul at that time, so I was doing Clapton at that time.
Is that right?
Yeah. I was going back to the Beano.
Sure.
Yeah.
Totally. You must have been in heaven.
Oh, yeah.
Having that kind of money to buy guitars.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So rocking.
Yeah, that was all live in the studio. No overdubs here, nothing.
You can hear it. You can't emulate this.
Right.
What is that?
Slide. Davey. Yep.
That's you.
Yep.
Running on the wrong side of the rail. With my boots tied, my hand-me-downs. You know, I run the toughest fucking side of town. Those street kids make us do just beat around.
Just awesome.
Here for the street kids, make us do just beat
So this is all you live on the day.
Yeah.
Here for the street kids, make us do just beat around. Let's hear it for the street kids.
That's it.
This part. What guitar were you playing? This sounded,
Les Paul.
It was a Les Paul.
Yeah.
Such great tone.
Thank you. When you got Roger Pope just keeping that groove going there, it's just so easy to play around there.
Yeah, when I hear those tracks, I mean, it's thrilling. It
Yeah,
thrills me
yeah.
because I can hear that, what is happening.
You're hearing the interplay. You're hearing
Yes.
this going on. Yeah.
Totally. The thing that's missing, you know? It drives me crazy. So I'm going to play you something. They released a song called Planes, which was a track you guys recorded. But do you remember this? It has this studio chatter at the beginning.
Oh.
I'm going to see if you remember this.
My word. And again. That's what comes on drinking on empty head, Davey.
I'll play it one more time.
My word. And again. That's what comes on drinking on empty head, Davey.
And I've never been able to figure out what's going on there,
No,
but it's so
just,
funny.
Just fun studio battle. I mean, we had fun in the studio.
Yeah,
You know, it
yeah.
really was a lot of fun. So there was always jokes going on, you know,
Yes.
before we actually went to a take, you know.
I wish they would include more of that stuff. Okay, so this is your starter for. This is
okay.
your composition,
Yeah.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
There's no piano in the mix, I don't think. Was Elton even in on the recording of this? It just sounds like more of an instrumental piece that maybe you guys put together.
I'd have to listen to it.
All right. Amazing.
It's James.
Yeah. Drums.
Oh, Roger was just, yeah.
Wowza.
That's right. Elton's not on it.
Yeah.
But it's funny. Yeah, I think what happened was, because I remember him, obviously he was sat at the piano when we did it. I think he played along with it, but for whatever reason they decided not to keep his piano part.
Was that just a piece that you wrote?
Yeah, it was. It's funny. We were in the studio in Toronto. We were there for a month. But once we started recording, I remember we went in one day and he said, I'd like to start the album off with an instrumental. He said, does anybody have anything? And I had this little piece that I'd actually written when I was living in Chicago during the winter.
Yeah.
As simply a little exercise to keep my fingers warm during the freezing cold of the winter.
That's great.
So it was this little kind of Baroque, acoustic piece, So I said, well, I've got this little piece. What do you think? So I played it and he loved it. He said, oh, that's great. Let's do that,
Yeah.
So the band jumped on it and that's what came out.
It's such a beautiful piece of music.
Thank you.
And it's so impeccably recorded and played. Yeah.
Roger's drumming on there is superb.
It's amazing.
James,
that stereophonic synth stuff that's just impeccable. Blue Moves, it's interesting because it's an album that it was so different. But man, this album, even as a very young person, I was one of those kids that bought the album when it came out, the day of,
Yeah.
And I put this on, I was like, what is this? I just had to shift my thinking.
Sure.
And now, to me, this is one of the most unheralded, amazing musical albums of the 1970s.
It was ahead of its time. No question about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
This song is just truly stunning piece of work instrumentally. Roger, you, everyone, just amazing. And I'm assuming this is all totally live.
Oh. Yeah.
Which side are you?
Right. Yeah. This is One Horse Town, I think.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. This one, when it takes off, man.
Oh, yeah.
You and Davey doing kind of a stereo thing, or like a harmony thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Cadillac for the first time yesterday. I'd always seen horses, buggies, bales of hay. 'Cause progress here don't move in my
Can you hear it?
He's missing out. That's a bummer.
He's missing the fun.
The bridge is so astonishingly cool. This is you, right?
Yeah. Davey on slide.
And Roger, man.
Oh, yeah.
Is that you guys trading off?
Yeah.
That's so you right there.
And they ain't too well acquainted with the stars and stripes.
All right. I had to play that with and ask you about it because I actually play that track for inspiration when I'm doing a project or when I'm producing, because that track puts me so in the state of mind that I feel I need to be in, because when you walk into a recording studio now, the temptation is to go with the way everyone else is going, which is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's, for me, it's almost like a discipline now. I have to say, nope, I'm not going to stare at that screen, you know? After you've played with Elton, you've done these world tours, obviously incredible experiences, Dodger Stadium, epic, amazing show. and then the 7 nights at Madison Square Garden. Then you say that you actually got a pink slip in Madison Square Garden. Was it at the beginning of those 7 shows, or was it at the end of those 7 shows, or do you even remember that?
I think it was the end of the last show.
Yeah.
But right before the last show. Yes. Yeah.
So what did that feel like? What happened?
Oh, that was rough. That was rough. It just felt like the rug had been pulled out.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it was, you know. It was just really rough. You know, we were excited. We had ideas, you know, of what, you know, because as a band, the band was so talented, we could do anything.
Which is demonstrated on Blue Moves.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we had ideas, you know, and all of a sudden that's all gone. And we didn't realize, you know, what exactly Elton was going through. So he was obviously going through his own issues, you know, and it was time for him to take a break.
One of the most ironic things about his life to me is that during that week that you guys are in LA doing Dodger Stadium, and you know, people like Cary Grant are coming backstage, and Elton is literally at the top. He is the biggest guy in the world.
Right.
And yet that week he takes a handful of pills and jumps in the pool. And he seems so miserable. And I've watched footage of him when they were declaring Elton John week. He looks so miserable, he's cynical, like this is so dumb.
Yeah.
He wanted that so badly. What do you think happened?
You know, I think it's a classic case of the fame and fortune and all of that, whatever we think of as success, you know, is not it. You know, so, you know, and here I got to go Bible on this, you know, Jesus says, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? And I think that's what happened. That's what you're seeing, you know. People used to say to me, you know, when I was, you know, working with Elton, you know, at gigs and things, you know, we do these shows, you know, almost 4-hour shows and 5 encores and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And people are going, oh, Caleb, you've really made it now. And I'm thinking, made what?
Yeah.
It's like you got a hole in your soul. There's all this stuff, you know, all the cars and the women and what have you, you know, all the stuff. But there's this, you know, I was still mad at my dad.
Yeah. You had pain that you...
Oh, my God, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is unresolved stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And Elton had his own unresolved stuff.
Yes, for sure.
And we both used to talk about it when we were teenagers. We both hated our fathers.
Yeah.
There's very few celebrities, you know, people that make it that big, that finish well. And the only answer I got is, you need Jesus. There's only one. He's the way, the truth, and the life. As the only one is relationship with the one who created us is where true happiness is found.
And healing from that
all
damage.
Of that stuff, all of that damage.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's through him. So, I know for myself, if it wasn't for Jesus, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Amen. I'd have flamed out and become a statistic back in 1982.
Do you think that when you look back on your life, you know, that was obviously a massive disappointment when that excitement and that being on top of the world came to an end?
Oh, yeah.
Was it kind of just a downhill trajectory from there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's like we were on the top of Mount Everest. As you said, he was the biggest thing on the planet at that time, you know. It was crazy. But that kind of a pinnacle doesn't last. Even on top of Mount Everest, there's no oxygen.
That's right.
So you're only going to breathe for so long.
That's good. Did you make that up?
I did. It just flew out.
That's great, man. That's really great. That's one for the books. Yeah, I like that.
So it was a downward thing, you know, and my dear friend Roger Pope had a tough time with it. It drove him to drink and everything, you know. I can tell you this. Roger's not with us anymore. He passed away in 2013, but I had the privilege of praying for him when he was on his deathbed to receive Jesus. Wow. And he did.
Incredible.
Yeah. There's a lot of documentaries, rock documentaries, whatever you want to call it, rockumentaries. This one is different. The purpose that I did it was we live in a time where there's a crisis of hope. And so it's a film that not only does it chronicles something about some music history that I was involved in, but it also, I think, inspires people toward having hope especially if they've come from some rough family dysfunction, there is hope. And so I just describe in there where my hope comes from, and hopefully in a way that is not like religious or over preachy. I'm not afraid to say the name of Jesus. He is our hope, and that's what saved me, was him, So I figure if he can do it to me, he can do it to anybody that really is crying out for help, anybody that's carried any kind of pain like that, for years and years. I hated my dad for 30 years, and that can kill you. It's about inspiration and hope. It's inspiring people to look up in hope instead of continually looking down in despair.
Yes.
That's the reason I did the movie.
It certainly had a big impact on me. I was moved to tears several times when I was watching it.
That's a response. We've been getting that response so many times. It's just, it's great.
Well, Caleb, it has been awesome talking to you today. A thrill, a blessing. You've had such an impact in my life as a musician, as a creative artist. Learning more about your life through this film has been really very cool for me. And to actually be able to come and sit down and spend an afternoon with you has been really cool.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Hopefully, maybe we'll talk again.
Okay, great. Thank you.